Hello.
Hey, welcome. For those of those you that don't know, we've got a wonderful guy named Harris Kenny. I'm sure most of you know him. I think Harris, you had a following long before a lot of us did on LinkedIn. You were, I think, we were early up and comers in the space, but you've got a very interesting kind of trajectory and how you started Outbound Sync now, which is one of the topics we'll be covering today, and kind of how you can use that to improve your agency, or if you're one of those like companies that is smart enough to be on the you know private or smaller sequencer level where you're using tools like Smartlead, instantly email Bison Hayreach, to be able to connect it into your bigger database. But anyways, Harris, welcome. Always lovely to have you. Always good for a great chat. Would love for you to kind of give a background to those of the people that are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Great to chat. Thanks for folks showing up. Love TT. It's basically my water cooler, being a solar founder. So it's love to.
That's a good analogy. It really is.
Yeah,
None of us have water coolers to go stand by when we want to geek out about lead gen, AI, automations, and so Tuesday Triggers is kind of that
that's
water
it. That's
cooler,
it
so
for
to
me
speak.
for sure. Yeah, I would love to have fun and just kind of shoot the shit and you know, give people a hard time. Yeah, my background. I ran a sales consultancy. I started on my own in 2019, and that kind of evolved. People really just wanted new leads, so it evolved into a lead gen agency. And I was using Close back in the day, and then Lemlist, and then when SmartLead came out, switched over to SmartLead. And so in general, I ran that agency for about 3.5 years and learned a lot. I would say it was like pretty successful. We had like our best months. We were doing like 30K or and over in monthly services, like billable services. So we weren't massive. We weren't building a kind of business like, frankly, some really successful folks have built that have their numbers out there, like Cold IQ or C17 or Growth Engine X and Understory and stuff like that. But it was just solid business. It got me great house, and we took some great trips, and like I think I learned a lot, but I wouldn't say I really perfected it. We can talk about just like challenges of scaling agencies, and I think some mistakes that I made that had I done differently, like I might not have ended up having Outbound Sync because I might have just had a better agency. But which is something I don't talk about a ton because it's like a really 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 niche thing. But if you're here, you might be interested in that. Because now I'm seeing how, now that we partner with these kinds of folks and people like you, Christian, like I see how people are doing it kind of more from the inside, and I'm like, oh shoot, like I wasn't doing that at all. So I've learned a ton about that. And obviously not competing because I don't have any agency services. It, we can have pretty candid conversations, and I get to really understand how people are doing it. And so that was like a whole chapter of life. But we had customers that were asking to get their outbound data from SmartLead into HubSpot, and there was no way to do it. So we built that, and then we had people asking about Salesforce, and then people said, well, "What about Instantly and Email Bison?" And then what about HeyReach? And so we've just sort of slowly built out connecting sales engagement platforms with HubSpot and Salesforce. So that's what we built today. Happy to talk about like the types of companies that are using HubSpot and Salesforce, why we only support those, how you can work with companies that are using those kind of tools to have better retention, better contract value, things like that. And then how you can attribute revenue, manage block lists, and help your clients basically even do some of the work for you that you might be doing on your own with N8N and stuff. So yeah, just like a little bit of preview, but I'm a really open book and happy to talk about, honestly, whatever people want to talk about.
Yeah, I think that so for the sake of today, I would love to hear about some of those challenges that you did have at that 30K range, because a lot of the people that are Tuesday Triggers members have started their own agency, are at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50K, and are running into some like challenges, right?
Hmm.
For us, I know the challenges, right? Because we had big hurdles at 20K,
Hmm.
at 70K,
Hmm.
at 120K, at 200K. Like we've had those challenges that you like, oh shit, like how did I
Yeah.
not see that coming? Right? And a lot of those, as we were talking about in the last session, come down to, as you get more sophisticated, is using tools like Outbound Sync or N8N to push data to your clients in a way that it makes it easy for them to understand and see. So you can communicate better, but also you can uncover blockers or like people and stakeholders within the company that maybe not like raising their voice, but aren't seeing things in a certain way. And so like they're like pissed off or they're unhappy, and that can go become a much bigger problem down the road, right? Like we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about in the last call, I had clients that we thought were doing amazing. We're like, oh, we're pushing you 100 leads a month, and they just churned. This was
Yeah.
early on, right? And we didn't realize that there was a bunch of people that weren't really getting visibility into what they needed, and we had to go and uncover that. And now we're always super proactive about, hey, let me speak with the sales team. Let me get like their feedback directly. I know you're saying great, but like I need to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? So, anyways,
Totally.
Outbound Sync helps with that a lot. But let's walk it back. Talk about some of the challenges that you ran into at that 30K, and then why Outbound Sync came into existence. And I definitely want to like see for some of those people that are watching right now to see Outbound Sync live and in action. If you can do some of that demo,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because I just think I think that's really valuable because we have a lot of like agency owners or like ICs here, but I do also want people that watch this down the road that are companies, like that are smart enough again to be utilizing tools like Smart Lead, Instantly, Email Bison for their own like multi-domain, multi-inbox outbound engine, right? To be able to also see the value of being able to funnel data really well. So walking it back, and then we can dive into some of the new stuff.
Absolutely. So walking it back to the agency days, so there was a couple things. So one of the challenges was I was having a hard time. Well, let me just start like pure ops, and then I'll move into kind of more of the outbound sync side. And good question from Andre. What's up, dude? And hey, Arnold. So the biggest thing is I didn't have a good. I hired some competent people, but I didn't hire somebody for whom I could completely hand things off. What I've found that the biggest agencies, most successful agencies that we're working with right now, and you know their names, is they have like a second in command. And that person can run the client relationship and they can be first contact with the customer as the customers have questions and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was always pulled between delivery and selling and then trying to market us. And then sometimes if things aren't going great with clients, you feel like a little sheepish about posting on LinkedIn because they're like, oh, well, I'm not really doing a great job over here. And what if they see it? What if they get like annoyed at me or want to churn? And I would see that. I would have a client who would be waiting to hear back from me, and then I would post a video on LinkedIn and they would email me right away about the thing that they were waiting on. And I could just like feel that they had like seen the video and been like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, well, dude, like I've got a few things going on. I'm trying to run a business. But when you're in a service business, they don't afford you that grace to be like, yeah, obviously you have to run the business and grow the business, at least not some of the people that I've been working with. So having a second in command, so they're not, so that every time they see you doing something or whatever, or anytime they're not hearing from you, they're not wondering like, well, why isn't my stuff happening? I
Yeah.
struggle to find a good person, and like, frankly, like probably should have paid more for that. Probably should have paid more for that person. I think that
Yeah.
was a big limiting thing. When I did Up on Sync, we raised a pre-seed round to give me runway because I have two young kids. Like I have expenses. I couldn't just do ramen profitability or whatever. Like I have hard expenses every single month that I absolutely have to clear. I did hire somebody who had experience doing CS for a SaaS, and I paid more than I had ever paid to hire somebody before, and it was totally worth it. So there's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing there, but I think that was like probably like the number one thing that I've seen across companies that they have that kind of person. The next thing is I was having a hard time proving the value of the work that we were doing. And that the outbound sync can potentially help with that if they're on HubSpot and Salesforce. You can get involved in terms of showing stuff and being able to attribute revenue. You can also, frankly, move a little bit of the responsibility, offload that onto the client, and say, "Hey, look, like I'm generating these leads for you. I'm looking them up. I'm filtering them. I'm segmenting them. I'm reaching out to them. You have a sales team. Your sales team's job is to engage with these folks too." And it
Yeah.
kind of moves that like spotlight, so it's not just squarely on you expecting like, why is this one person who I'm barely paying enough money to, why aren't they growing my company for me? So
Interesting.
yeah.
That's a really interesting perspective, by the
So
way.
by putting it in the CRM and you say, hey, listen, like the sales rep's job is to follow up here. Do you agree with that? Like, or are you expecting me fractionally to do the job of your entire sales team? And if so, like, what do you think my compensation should be? So just by putting it into the CRM, you change the conversation.
Yeah.
Instead of having a instead of having like a screen share of your Google Sheet or your custom dashboard, you have a screenshot of their CRM
Yeah.
with their sales team's activities and their attributed revenue. And you can say, oh, like how much was that trade show? Looks like that generated a lead. Last week we sent you 50 or 20 or 10 or 5. How much did you spend on that trade show? Oh, like $300,000 to fly the whole team out there and get the booth and get the restaurants and okay, well,
Oh,
we
well, they've
didn't.
all got stacks of business cards, so
Right. Yeah. Stacks of business cards that nobody followed up with. So yeah. Anyway, that was another thing that I think undermined the effectiveness of the agency. And I think the other thing was the last thing was probably doing too many things for myself. I probably should have said like, listen, there's vendors who specialize in this and identified experts earlier and allowed them so that I could stay in my sort of zone of genius and what I was really good at. So whether that was like setting up inboxes or something else, I was probably doing too much work on my own. But all of these things are a function of your cash flow. You can't go out and hire people to do a bunch of stuff if you don't have the money. So it's easier said than done.
yeah, yeah.
But that's my reflection on my agency era.
Well,
But I made
so
some great friends. We made some great clients and learned a lot. That
yeah.
ended up helping me build a great product. I mean, it was a good time. I missed the
You got
cash flow
invited
of
to
the
Tuesday
agency days.
Triggers. You made it in
Yeah.
the kids group.
Yeah, I'm here with these hooligans.
You did decline it though. We won't go into that story the first time the first time that you bailed on it because Enzo's potty mouth was just wrecking everything. But
I forget what was going on with that. There were some other things going on in some other groups at that time that were particularly odious, and so I was very sensitive to kind of where I was spending my time at that time. Not to dredge up that old history, but it was kind of like,
oh, I'm
so
just
yeah,
messing around.
yeah.
You should show us Outbound Sync.
Yeah, totally. So we're a HubSpot and a Salesforce app. So what I can show you here, this is TT exclusive. I know we've got a small crew here, so I'll show it to you. You're the first people to see this.
Small but mighty.
Exactly. Well, that's all we need. That's a small group of people really committed to spam or changing the world right now.
Pointing out while you loaded up
Yeah.
that sweet poster that you have in the background.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, unironic. Or no, I mean, we would never send. We would never send.
No. We don't.
We only send ham.
Yes, exactly.
or a plant-based ham alternative if you don't
Via direct mail.
eat meat. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let me just share my screen here. So, I mean, basically the way Outbound Sync works is that we are mapping the data model from these sequencers to the CRM. So it's actually pretty complicated. Like, for example, there's not a company object in most of these sequencers, whereas the CRM, the company or account, is like a foundational object. But actually, before I jump into the screen share, I've got it pulled up. I just want to answer a couple of things that came up in chat. Andre said he hasn't had clients ask about pushing data to HubSpot or Salesforce. Jamie said work with bigger clients. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's probably you need bigger clients because bigger clients do ask for this. Or they may look at what you're doing as transactional, and I would encourage you to think about shifting that narrative a little bit and not just positioning yourself as like, or maybe you are, but like I find a lot of agencies, and I was stuck in this middle ground of like pay for performance versus like more of a retainer base. Like my job is to help grow your business, and there's going to be some intangible things there. At the end of the day, like people want new leads, but if you can say, listen, I contacted these people and we had touches on what were converted leads, even though they didn't reply right away, then you get something interesting. And Olivier's right on. If a client needs to tell you what to do, then you're an employee. I mean, I do think there's room to be a little assertive, and you tell them like, hey, this is the best practice, and we feel like you want to get this data into your main system of record, basically, along with everything else. So I think that's part of it. And then Arnold asked about Go High Level. Honestly, I'm just not super familiar with Go High Level. I know that it's got a lot of big fans. I know that like Arnold and even Jesse and others have said great things about it. I think Jason is a Go High Level guy. We're only on HubSpot and Salesforce right now because that's where the bigger companies are, because they can support the data model. They can handle like lots of integrations. They have very robust API. They can just do a lot. I'm not opposed to these other CRMs. I'm even personally been looking at Close for us, but like we're essentially an SMB. We're not the same as our client. Like we are not the same as Gainsight. They have 2,000 employees. We have 4. So it's like, you know, we don't have to, you don't have to LARP like a big company if you're not a big company. Maybe a point solution works better for you. We've switched to some different point solutions to solve a few specific problems, like Atlas, for which we're using for support, and it's working way, 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 way better because it integrates nicely with Slack, and I'm like pretty thrilled with it. So, yeah, kind of depends on what you got going on. All right, so let's pull up. This is a test account, so it's just a little messy, but I just kind of want to show you where we're at right now. So this is the way Outbound Sync works in general is you're going to create a webhook receiver that's going to catch these webhook payloads from sales engagement platforms. And then we basically map those properties and fields and then push it over to the CRM. It sounds really simple. It can get really weird. I see Jamie here, like Jamie can attest to this. You get some things where like you have very large webhook payloads that are too large. They get rejected by platforms like Clay or Supabase because the payload is too big. So we stumble on lots of weird things. Sometimes we'll get webhook payloads from a sequencer where there's no lead ID, but it's a lead. As far as I know, if it's in a database, the lead ID should be the primary key for the lead table, and yet somehow we get leads with no lead ID. So we just get weird, messy data sometimes. So there's a lot more that happens in the middle than I would like even care to think about because it's just been such an annoying process of working through some of these things to get reliable, repeatable, accurate data. But know that we do a lot of stuff in the middle and then we push it over to the CRM. So what this looks like in HubSpot, I'll show you just for starters, is we log this event in 2 different ways. We use, well, a few. We use the activities field. So these are going to be logged as native activities in HubSpot. And so for LinkedIn, which is like a B2B social channel, we're going to have that LinkedIn message type logged on the timeline. So if you're using HeyReach, you can have the full messaging logged in there. So when we talk about pushing accountability over to the sales team and saying, hey, you need to pick this up, well, part of that is showing them what happened before they got the lead so that they can pick up the conversation. Because otherwise they're going to complain about that. And they're going to say, well, how am I supposed to follow up with this lead if I don't know what happened? So getting it in is really helpful for that. Timeline events are the second thing. So we're going to push these timeline events over inside of HubSpot as well. And these are going to allow things like workflows. So for example, what you'll be able to build with this HeyReach integration, we're going to have folks testing it later this week. You'll be able to build a workflow, for example, that says like when let's see, we'll go to triggered integrator events. So let's just say like, we want to have a sales rep call people whenever like a profile is viewed in a HeyReach campaign. You know, you can do that. You can, and you can just trigger it based on this event occurred. And when this event occurs, now I want to create, let's just say a call task for the sales rep to make a phone call. And you'll be able to build these kind of integrated workflows for sales reps so that they can follow up with prospects. And so, you know, where I think things are going, and we were just talking about this, Christian, with, you know, your paid ads background, everything else, I think we're going to be seeing these point solutions get integrated with each other and with the system of record. And we're going to be essentially recreating what some of these like Outreach and SalesLoft has done, but way better. But there still needs to be orchestration happening. And we believe our position is that the CRM is the best place for that to happen for at least like up to mid-market companies. When you go beyond that, you know, or for a KG agency, maybe it's Supabase as a source of operations, or for a bigger company, maybe it's Snowflake. So like, I'm not saying HubSpot and Salesforce are the be all end all, but for us right now, that's our primary focus because they have reporting built in, they have workflows built in, and then they have admins internally that use those tools.
Love it or hate it. Every single one of my clients uses HubSpot or Salesforce except for one that uses ADIO. So, I mean,
I know. And the problem, dude, ADIO doesn't even have SOC 2.
Yeah.
Wow. ADIO emails aren't even, activities aren't like even a default object in ADIO. I think ADIO is super interesting, but like the data model isn't there yet. And they don't have the security stuff yet. So
Interesting. I didn't know about the SOC 2 stuff.
Yeah, which I understand there's plenty of critics out there of SOC 2, and I understand some of those criticisms, but the reality is for a lot of big companies, that's just a flat out requirement.
Yeah,
So
100%.
we got SOC 2 Type 2. We got a year ago. We're in the process of renewing our audit now.
Huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Rev reply, whew, man. those
Oh
are-
my gosh, totally. Yeah, you've seen it from both. I mean, you've seen it from the agency side, you've seen it from the SaaS side. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
this kind
yeah,
of becomes like a little bit like, again, connecting those dots, man, like to be able to connect a Hey Reach thing to calls to like just pushing all of that around is like so powerful. To like, I think the more nuanced companies, I think for agencies that can deploy this quickly, it's hugely powerful. For agencies that can just be able to push this data into their clients' thing and really easily, it's again super powerful to kind of give a bit of the ownership back to the client, but also like some of the responsibility back to the client.
yes.
But for companies that are using this for the first time too, also super powerful to just like again get to like if you're a RevOps person to be able to do this, that's super powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So like let's say like, you want to start a, this is where like the question, someone might look at this little two-step thing and say, why the heck am I doing that in HubSpot? I can do that in N8N. I can do that in Zapier. Nothing about this is interesting at all, Harris. Like literally, why do you even exist as a SaaS? Well, here's where it starts to get interesting. So let's say you want to layer some additional requirements in here. And this is where the bigger teams have these requirements. They're going to say, okay, well, yeah, I want to create this call task for the sales rep so they follow up after a profile view. However, I don't want to make my sales reps go out and call open deals or customers. And if we've had a meeting with them before, I don't want them to call them either. So the idea behind getting in the system of record is that we can layer these filters and these other things in place so that we are not creating this like inefficiency and extra work for the sales team. So we're only going to do this workflow when all these things are met. And so that's why the CRM, because there's this strong internal momentum and like center of gravity around like, let's get all the data in there. Otherwise, you're having to recreate and reintegrate every single thing with some other place. So you're going to have to make like 15 OAuth connections into Zapier to go check Calendly and go check this and go check that. So it's just like you want to find companies that are big enough that they need to get all the data in one place.
Yeah.
They have more money. They have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Like they have to keep growing and they are also going to have this internal friction, this lack of creativity.
Yeah.
Committees deciding everything. And so when you come in from the outside and you're in TT and you're sharing these crazy ideas and you're like, okay, this is the campaign I want to run. Like no internal person would ever think of it. So it's like it's all of those reasons why they are struggling, which is why they need to work with folks like you, Christian and Jamie and people here.
Yeah.
Jamie says, welcome to my life. Yeah. Welcome to Jamie's life, folks.
A mile in Jamie's shoes.
A kilometer. Come on, Christian.
Right. My bad.
Freaking American pig. Just kidding. Imperial system for life. I actually really dislike metric. Sorry, everyone. It's my least popular position.
So this has been super insightful, man. I know that, obviously we've tested Outbound Sync and we've started to deploy it for our bigger clients, and we'll probably just deploy it for everyone here in the next couple of weeks. But I just think it's really a value add that, like, again, you've found this thing that's super important. You can see why all of the biggest agencies are kind of switching over to it, but it's just really important to be able to mesh the conversation with clients and for the longevity. I mean, that's really like one of the biggest investments that we see it as, is like, this will help us better communicate with all stakeholders of all clients. So super insightful, man. Very much appreciate it. Anything that the group or anyone here should know?
I mean,
you've got Hey Reach is just released.
Yeah, Hey Reach is coming out this week, so we've got beta testers are going to get their hands on it, including Outbound Buddy will be one of those. So if you're curious about it, ask Jamie what he thinks. I am sure that between Jamie, Darcy, Sabi, and others on their team, they will have some tickets for us, so they will have some feedback. I am certain of it. They have eagle eyes over there at Outbound Buddy, and so that's the big thing. And so where we see it going over the next year is omnichannel. So I'd encourage you to think about that in terms of direction for your agency. Your words, not mine, Darcy. And I would say the omni-channel is where we see things going.
Yeah.
So we're building our product to support that for folks,
Yep.
so that instead of being like, oh, sorry, client, I'm whatever sequencer had a glitch today, you can instead be like, hey, FYI, this sequencer had a glitch today. However, we're also running this and this and this, and so we're going to shift a little bit of our resources over there. And so I think it's going to allow people to feel a little more in control of what's going on. So appreciate the feedback and all the ideas, and just like frankly the community and friendship and TT space. Like I'm super grateful for what you built, Christian. It's just like an incredible group of people, and so yeah. And I'll see you all out there. And if I can ever help with anything or make any intros, like I really do consider this place my water cooler for sure. And yeah.
Yeah, of course, man. And if anyone sees this, obviously always just DM me if you want an invite to Tuesday Triggers. It's just a super community that we just talk about this stuff all day. So, Harris, thanks for coming on. Appreciate all the people here for joining today. Have an awesome week.
Thanks.
All right. Later, y'all.